Did you know that during the Rauhnachte, the animals can speak at midnight? This is one of the most fascinating traditions that has been passed down through German villages for centuries. In the 12 nights between Christmas and Epiphany, the stable animals are said to speak in human language about the future of their owners. But our ancestors warned against listening in. The farmhands who accidentally overheard these conversations documented what happened next. Within months, every single one of them suffered catastrophic misfortune. Some lost their homes to fire. Others watched family members die from sudden illness. Some secrets are too great for human ears. Welcome to the Pandora's Project, where we unseal the forbidden archives of human tradition. Tonight, we're revealing the 7 rules of the Rauhnachte, a German word meaning the rough nights or smoky nights, referring to the 12 nights stretching from Christmas Eve on December 24th through Epiphany on January 6th. What is told today comes from the rich traditions of the German cultural sphere, from the Black Forest to the Alps, from Bavaria to Austria. These rules are far more than mere folklore. They are survival instructions for a time when the boundaries between everyday life and the spirit world become blurred. If you want to discover these fascinating traditions, leave a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more secrets of our forebears. And tell us in the comments which region you come from. Maybe there are similar stories from your area. The 12 Rauhnachte begin tonight, and there are rules that can help you experience this magical time consciously. Rule 1. The laundry that kills. Something as mundane as hanging wet sheets to dry becomes deadly dangerous during these 12 nights. Laundry. From December 24th through January 6th, no laundry may be washed, hung to dry, or strung on outdoor lines. This prohibition appears in every region of the German cultural sphere with remarkable consistency. In Bavaria, the southeastern German state known for beer and Alpine traditions, grandmothers still refuse to touch washing during these 12 days. In the Black Forest, where dense pine forests cover the mountains of southwestern Germany, the rule holds just as firmly. Throughout Austria, the German-speaking country directly south of Germany in the Alps, and even in the northern coastal regions along the Baltic Sea, the same warning echoes across generations. When a rule spreads this widely and persists this long, it points to something real. The reason has everything to do with the wild hunt. This isn't a colorful myth invented for children's books. For over 1,000 years, the wild hunt represented a documented belief system that shaped behavior across all of Germanic Europe. People structured their entire lives around avoiding its attention. The wild hunt is a spectral procession of ghostly riders that tears through the night sky during the 12 Rauhnachte, led by Woden, the ancient Germanic god whose name evolved into our English word Wednesday. These phantom horsemen are searching for connections to the human world, and a simple clothesline stretched between posts becomes exactly what they're seeking. Here's what happens. The wild hunt rides through the darkness above your home, and your clothesline catches them like a fishing net snags on underwater debris. The spirits themselves can't be truly trapped because they're incorporeal beings without solid form, but they become entangled in the physical lines. The sheets and shirts wrapped around them create frustrating obstacles. Most importantly, getting caught makes them angry. Spirits that feel obstructed or mocked don't simply move on and forget. They remember the house that dared to block their path. The consequences unfold in stages. First, the ghostly riders struggle to free themselves, yanking hard on the lines as they try to escape. The physical clotheslines snap under this supernatural strain. Your laundry falls into the mud and snow below, ruined beyond saving. But damaged clothing is only the beginning of your problems. Those angry spirits now know exactly where you live. They've marked your home as a place where the old rules aren't respected. Throughout the coming year, they'll return during storms and dark nights, testing your defenses, looking for ways inside, making their displeasure known through small disasters and persistent bad luck. The Austrian Alps, that dramatic mountain range stretching across southern Austria where peaks rise over 12,000 feet, documented something particularly disturbing about white underwear and linens. The bright fabric hanging in the darkness acts as a signal beacon to the spectral riders far above. They interpret white cloth glowing against the night as a marker indicating that young unmarried women live in this household. A woman who hangs white laundry during the Rauhnachte isn't just risking torn sheets. She's advertising her presence to entities whose intentions toward living humans are never benevolent. The attention she draws can manifest as nightmares, unexplained illnesses, or difficulties finding a suitable husband throughout the coming year. Sometimes the wild hunt doesn't just damage the laundry. They take it. White sheets and undergarments vanish completely from the lines, carried away into the spirit realm by the ghostly riders. According to traditions recorded across multiple regions, these stolen items function as prophetic markers. The person whose laundry disappears during the Rauhnachte will face serious misfortune during the corresponding month of the coming year. Lose a shirt during the first night, and January brings trouble. Lose bedsheets during the sixth night, and June arrives with problems. Village records documented these patterns with unsettling accuracy over generations. In the Black Forest, where the dense evergreen forests create shadows so deep that noon feels like twilight, the supernatural threat takes a slightly different form. Here, the entity is called the Woad, a regional manifestation of the ancient war god who leads a ghostly army through the sky. The Woad doesn't tear down your clotheslines in frustration. He uses them as pathways. That stretched line between posts becomes a bridge connecting the spirit world directly to your home's interior. He follows it like a rope stretched across a chasm, traveling from the outside darkness straight into your living space. Once he finds this entrance, he marks it spiritually. For the entire year ahead, his violent influence seeps through this connection, bringing discord, arguments, and aggressive energy into what should be a peaceful household. The danger extends beyond just hanging laundry outdoors. The washing process itself creates spiritual problems. The dirty water produced when you scrub clothes and linens is considered highly receptive to supernatural influence. Think of murky wash water as a spiritual medium, similar to how some psychics claim to see visions in crystal balls or standing water. Spirits can gather in this clouded liquid, hiding in the soap suds and suspended dirt particles. When you pour this water out onto the ground, you're not just disposing of dirty water. You're spreading those gathered spirits across your entire property. They soak into the soil. They settle into the foundations of your home. The whole area becomes permeated with their presence, creating a persistent spiritual contamination that's extremely difficult to remove. Even damp laundry hanging inside your house poses risks during the Rauhnachte. House spirits, which are minor supernatural entities that exist in most homes without causing problems under normal circumstances, are strongly attracted to moisture. They inhabit the wet garments while they're hanging to dry, settling into the fabric fibers and waiting. When someone puts on a shirt or dress that hosted a spirit during the Rauhnachte, that person carries the entity with them for the entire year. The spirit's presence manifests as a string of small mishaps. Tools break at crucial moments. Food spoils faster than it should. Minor accidents accumulate into significant problems. Nothing catastrophic enough to point to a clear supernatural cause, but enough consistent bad luck to make life noticeably harder. What makes this laundry rule particularly fascinating is how it persists even when the explanation has been forgotten. Many modern German and Austrian families still instinctively avoid washing clothes between Christmas and Epiphany without knowing why. They've never heard of the wild hunt or the woad. Their parents and grandparents simply told them not to do laundry during this time, and they followed the instruction without questioning it. This represents cultural memory operating at an almost genetic level, a habit passed down through so many generations that it continues even after the reasoning disappears. For households in modern apartments, especially in cities where outdoor clotheslines don't exist anymore, the question of relevance naturally arises. The traditional interpretation is clear on this point. Balconies and terraces count as outdoor spaces where the rule fully applies. The spirits don't distinguish between a clothesline in a rural farmyard and one on a fifth-floor apartment balcony. Both are equally visible from the sky above. The safest approach is to complete all washing before December 24th begins. Stock up on clean clothing in advance. If an absolute emergency arises and something must be washed, dry everything inside the apartment using indoor drying racks and keep the damp clothes far away from windows and exterior doors. Some traditional families take the rule even further with modern appliances. They cover their washing machines with cloth during the 12 nights as a symbolic acknowledgement that this device must rest during the Rauhnachte. Others unplug the machine entirely, physically removing even the possibility of use. These adaptations show how traditional rules evolve to address new technology while maintaining their core protective purpose. The laundry ban establishes something crucial about the nature of the Rauhnachte. This isn't a passive holiday period when you simply wait for normal time to resume. These 12 nights represent a dangerous interval when the usual protection separating the human world from the spirit realm weakens significantly. Supernatural entities gain increased access to our dimension. The wild hunt isn't a metaphor for winter storms or a colorful story to frighten children. Germanic communities across Europe structured their behavior around avoiding its attention because the consequences of attracting that attention were real, documented, and often devastating. When families broke this rule, they recorded what happened next in careful detail. Entire households lost members to sudden unexplained illnesses. Homes burned from fires with no identifiable source. Livestock died without visible injuries or disease symptoms. The pattern repeated with such consistency that communities eventually codified the prohibition into unbreakable law. No laundry during the 12 nights. No exceptions worth the risk. The wild hunt still rides through modern skies. Our contemporary world hasn't banished these forces. We've simply stopped paying attention to them. But the old protections still function exactly as they always have. The first and most basic protection is straightforward. When the 12 Rauhnachte arrive, keep every clothesline completely empty. Rule 2. The fatal brooms. Touch a broom on December 21st and you've just swept your family's fortune straight out the door. This second rule cuts deeper than anyone expects when they first hear about Rauhnachte traditions. These 12 nights aren't simply a time to avoid certain household tasks while continuing with everything else as normal. They represent a period of absolute stillness where even ordinary work carries consequences that echo throughout the entire coming year. Our Germanic ancestors understood that these nights exist outside regular time, suspended in a liminal space where the normal rules governing reality don't fully apply. Human activity during this interval doesn't just risk your own well-being. Breaking this rule brings misfortune down on every person living under your roof. The strictest prohibition concerns something as simple as sweeping your floors. In the Black Forest region of southwestern Germany, this rule actually begins before the Rauhnachte officially start. On December 21st, the winter solstice and the longest night of the entire year, you must not touch a broom under any circumstances. Sweeping on this particular day means sweeping your household's luck straight out the door. Beyond losing fortune, you're actively granting dark supernatural powers an opening into your living space that they'll exploit throughout the year ahead. The reasoning behind this ban has everything to do with what dust becomes during these special nights. Under normal circumstances, dust is just dust. Dead skin cells, dirt tracked in from outside, ordinary household grime that accumulates naturally. But during the Rauhnachte, the dust covering your floors transforms into something entirely different. It becomes permeated with spiritual residue, carrying traces of every entity that walked through your rooms during the previous year. These aren't visible footprints or obvious signs. They're energetic remnants of supernatural presence, invisible but absolutely real. When you sweep during the 12 nights, you're not removing ordinary filth. You're gathering up these spiritual traces in your broom and pushing them outside your door. On the surface, this seems beneficial. Get rid of the spiritual contamination. Clear out the unwanted energy. But the swept dust doesn't simply disappear into nothing. It accumulates in a pile just outside your entrance where the wild hunt will inevitably find it. These ghostly riders collect the dust you've discarded, and because it carries the energetic signature of your home, they can use it as a trail leading directly back to your door. You've essentially marked yourself as someone who breaks the old rules. The spirits note this violation carefully. Throughout the coming year, demons and wandering entities will return to test your defenses, search for weaknesses, and attempt to gain entry into a house they now know disrespects tradition. Placing swept dirt directly in front of your entrance creates an even worse situation. This visible pile acts as a signal beacon to every supernatural entity wandering through your area during the Rauhnachte. It announces loudly that the old traditions are being ignored in this particular household. You've created an invitation that draws dark attention from forces that should remain unaware of your existence. The consequences of this foolish advertisement will manifest as persistent problems throughout the 12 months ahead. Sweeping represents only the beginning of the work prohibitions. All heavy physical labor must cease completely during the Rauhnachte. No chopping firewood in your yard. No repairs to buildings or fences. No work in gardens or farm fields. This ban operates on 2 levels simultaneously. The practical reasoning is straightforward enough. These 12 nights offer rare time for genuine rest and reflection in agricultural societies where labor filled every daylight hour throughout the year. But the spiritual reasoning cuts much deeper. Heavy work creates vibrations that disturb the fine energies permeating the air during this sensitive time. The physical impacts of chopping, hammering, and digging shatter the delicate boundary separating our world from the spirit realm, making it easier for entities to cross over into human space. Handicrafts carry their own specific and frightening dangers. Sewing, embroidering, and especially spinning are absolutely forbidden during all 12 nights. The symbolism here doesn't require interpretation. Thread in these cultural traditions represents the thread of human life itself. Sit at a spinning wheel during the Rauhnachte, work that pedal, watch the wheel turn. You're spinning your own death with every rotation. The wheel moves. Thread forms. Somewhere in the realm where fate is determined, your life thread grows shorter. Germanic communities took this prohibition so seriously that spinning wheels were completely hidden away before the 12 nights began. Families covered them with heavy cloth, locked them in closets, or moved them to storage buildings where no one would see them. Even looking at a spinning wheel during the Rauhnachte was considered risky. The device itself carried too much symbolic weight with its circular motion that echoed the wheel of fate. No one wanted to accidentally set that wheel spinning in a direction they couldn't control. This fear of circular motion extended far beyond spinning wheels. Stirring dough while baking was forbidden, which meant all Christmas cookies and holiday bread had to be prepared and baked before December 24th arrived. The circular movement of a wooden spoon rotating through bread dough mimicked the turning of fate's wheel. Stirring during the Rauhnachte meant stirring your own destiny, potentially mixing unfortunate ingredients into your future. A moment of carelessness while preparing food could manifest as disaster months later. Even routine stable work fell under these restrictions. Mucking out animal stalls to remove old straw and manure was strictly prohibited. The reasoning centered on the concepts of blessing and accumulated fortune. Your stable as it stood at the start of the Rauhnachte contained a full year's worth of accumulated positive energy. The animals lived in this space throughout all 4 seasons. Their health, their productivity, their calm presence had built up a reservoir of beneficial force within those walls. Removing the old bedding meant removing this blessing along with the physical waste. You'd be cleaning away the good fortune that should carry forward into the new year. For modern people living in cities and suburbs, most heavy agricultural labor is already absent between Christmas and New Year's Day. but the underlying principles extend to contemporary equivalents. Vacuuming your carpets replicates traditional sweeping and should be avoided for the same reasons. The vacuum's suction pulls up dust and debris, removing those spiritual traces that have settled into your floors during the year. Better to leave everything undisturbed for 12 nights. Handicrafts today function mainly as leisure activities rather than necessary production, but the ancient warnings still apply. Knitting follows exactly the same principle as spinning thread. The needles move in repetitive circular patterns, the yarn forms loops, and the work mimics the creation of life threads through its very structure. Anyone who enjoys knitting as a relaxing hobby should set it aside completely for the 12 Rauhnachte. Choose other activities instead. Read books. Write in a journal. Do things that don't involve circular motion or working with thread and yarn. Modern appliances create entirely new concerns that our ancestors never had to consider. Washing machines, kitchen mixers, food processors, anything with components that spin or rotate contains that dangerous circular movement principle. The specific mechanism doesn't matter. The underlying concept remains unchanged. Circular motion during the Rauhnachte can set the wheel of fate turning in unpredictable directions that you can't control or stop once they begin. Using these 12 nights for activities that don't involve machinery is simply safer. The work prohibition serves a deeper purpose that gets lost in modern interpretations. These rules aren't about encouraging laziness or reinforcing outdated superstitions. They're about creating genuine stillness in lives that rarely experience it. In agricultural societies, true rest almost never happened. Every single day brought necessary tasks that couldn't be postponed. Animals needed feeding. Fires required tending. Fields demanded attention. Work literally never ended from sunrise to sunset. The Rauhnachte provided the only time when entire communities collectively agreed to stop everything, to be completely still, to listen. In that stillness, other things became perceptible that constant activity normally obscured. The subtle movements of spiritual forces flowing through the world. The quiet messages and intuitions that get drowned out by daily noise and effort. Our ancestors understood that relentless work creates relentless mental noise, and within that noise, important signals from other dimensions are completely lost. The 12 nights offered a chance to tune into frequencies that ordinary busy life makes impossible to detect. This is why the work rules matter even in our contemporary world, perhaps especially in our contemporary world. Modern life generates even more noise than agricultural existence ever did. Screens demand our attention constantly. Devices interrupt us every few minutes. Connectivity never stops. Endless tasks pile up without resolution. The Rauhnachte offer permission to simply stop. Not from fear of supernatural consequences alone, though those consequences are absolutely real, but from recognizing that stillness itself has genuine value. Rest isn't laziness. It's necessary maintenance of human consciousness and spiritual awareness. When all work finally ceases, when your house falls quiet, when the constant doing that defines modern existence finally pauses, something interesting happens. Your mind begins to settle like sediment sinking in a jar of shaken water. Your body releases tension it's been carrying for months. In that deep relaxation, awareness naturally expands beyond its usual narrow focus. Dreams become more vivid and memorable. Intuitions strengthen and clarify. The boundary separating conscious thought from unconscious wisdom grows thinner and more permeable. This is the real gift hidden within the work prohibition. Not just protection from angry spirits, though that protection functions exactly as described, but access to parts of yourself that constant activity normally keeps locked away and inaccessible. The second rule teaches that the Rauhnachte demand active participation rather than passive waiting. Choosing not to work is itself a form of spiritual work. It requires genuine discipline to set aside the endless tasks that normally fill every waking hour. But families who manage this discipline discover that the 12 nights offer something valuable that modern life rarely provides: a genuine pause, a deep breath, a moment standing outside the relentless forward push of time. In that suspended moment, other things become possible that rush daily existence never allows. Rule 3. The deadly whistle. How many times have you slammed a door in frustration without thinking twice? During the Rauhnachte, that single moment of carelessness summons a thunderstorm that will strike your home 7 months later. Sound itself becomes a weapon that can kill you. The acoustic landscape that surrounds us constantly. Every door closing. Every footstep. Every spoken word. Under normal circumstances, these sounds pass through our awareness without significance. But during the 12 Rauhnachte, even the most harmless noise carries weight that extends far beyond the physical vibration. Every sound creates ripples in the spiritual realm. Some of those ripples draw attention from entities that should absolutely remain undisturbed. The single most dangerous sound you can make is slamming a door. Slam a door during these 12 nights and you summon a thunderstorm that will strike your home during the summer months ahead. This isn't symbolic language or colorful exaggeration. Germanic families documented this correlation across multiple generations with disturbing consistency. A household where doors were slammed in December faced severe storms in July and August. Lightning struck their barns. Wind tore roofs away from buildings. Hail destroyed their crops. The connection appeared too regularly to dismiss as coincidence. Understanding why requires grasping how the spiritual realm interprets and responds to sound. A slammed door creates a sharp, violent crack that breaks the sacred silence the Rauhnachte demand. That crack doesn't simply dissipate into nothing. It echoes through dimensions beyond our normal perception. The sound reverberates in places where acoustic energy takes semi-physical form and can be stored like water in a reservoir. Months later, when conditions align properly, that stored energy releases all at once. The crack becomes actual thunder. The violence becomes real lightning. The door slam you made in frustration on December 28th returns as a storm that could kill someone in your family during August. Our ancestors weren't speaking in metaphors or trying to scare children into better behavior. They recorded actual events, real consequences. A farmer slammed his door in anger on the 3rd Rauhnacht because his wife burned dinner. 7 months later, August arrived. Lightning struck his barn during a thunderstorm. 3 horses died. The building burned to the ground. The family remembered that door slam. They recalled the sharp bang, the immediate uncomfortable feeling that something had gone terribly wrong. 7 months of dread waiting for the bill to come due. Then it arrived, exactly as tradition predicted. Doors aren't the only source of dangerous noise. Whistling during the early morning hours attracts unwanted attention from forces that hunt for any connection to the living world. Whistling has functioned as a form of communication across cultures for thousands of years. Shepherds whistle to their dogs, creating signals that carry across hills and valleys. Sailors whistle to call favorable winds. The sound transmits meaning beyond simple noise. During the Rauhnachte, when the boundary separating worlds grows thin enough to see through, a whistle becomes an invitation that travels much farther than you intend. The problem is that you can't control who or what responds to that invitation. Whistle in the gray pre-dawn hours before the sun rises, and something hears you. Something answers. Not always immediately or obviously, but a connection forms between you and whatever entity perceived your signal. An entity in the spirit realm recognizes the sound and begins moving toward its source. By the time you realize what you've summoned, the thing has already arrived and established itself in your vicinity. The spirits that respond to careless whistling are rarely benevolent. Benevolent entities don't need whistled invitations to help humans who want their assistance. They come when called through proper prayer or ritual. The spirits that respond to random morning whistling are the ones who have been desperately searching for any opening, any tiny crack in the protections that normally keep them contained in their own realm. Your whistle gives them exactly the opportunity they need to cross over. The first 3 Rauhnachte carry particular sensitivity to loud, sudden noises of any kind. Speak loudly during these critical nights and you invoke harmful magic that lasts throughout every month of the coming year. Drop heavy objects on the floor. Move furniture that scrapes and bangs. Create any sharp, unexpected sound, and you're weaving negative energy directly into the fabric of the next 12 months. The precision of this rule, focusing specifically on just the first 3 nights rather than all 12, reveals generations of careful observation. Our Germanic ancestors tested these boundaries repeatedly and recorded their results with scientific attention to detail. The reason lies in the fundamental nature of what the Rauhnachte actually are. These 12 nights exist in a state of temporal suspension. Normal time stops its forward progression. The regular order of reality pauses like a freeze frame in a film. In this suspended state, loud noises act exactly like stones thrown into perfectly still water. They create ripples that spread outward in concentric circles in all directions. Those ripples don't fade away as they would during normal time. They persist. They carry forward into the new year, creating ongoing disturbances that manifest as misfortune, accidents, and persistent bad luck. Not every sound carries equal danger. Church bells ringing on the hour are considered actively protective. Their deep, melodious tones create sacred sound that strengthens the barriers between worlds rather than weakening them. Quiet prayers spoken with genuine reverence help rather than harm. The crucial distinction reveals what actually matters. Sound itself isn't the problem. The quality of sound determines whether it protects or endangers. Harsh, discordant, violent noises tear at the fabric separating dimensions. Gentle, harmonious, intentional sounds reinforce and repair that fabric. This created interesting practical challenges in traditional households. Coughing posed a genuine problem because it's involuntary and can be quite loud. An unexpected coughing fit could constitute dangerous noise during the sensitive hours. Some families kept wooden buckets nearby specifically for coughing into, muffling the sound before it could spread through the house. Small children presented even greater challenges. They're naturally noisy and completely incapable of understanding complex supernatural rules. In some extreme cases documented in village records, young children were actually placed inside cloth sacks during the most critical hours to physically suppress their sounds. This seems harsh by our modern standards, but it reveals how seriously communities perceived the threat. The wild hunt itself uses noise as a navigation system. These spectral riders follow loud sounds across the landscape like predators tracking wounded prey by the sounds it makes. They orient on noise and adjust their flight path accordingly. A slammed door provides a beacon visible from miles away in the spirit realm. The ghostly army hears it, locks onto the source, and changes direction. What began as a careless moment becomes a marker guiding supernatural attention directly to your home's location. Modern households face unique difficulties with this rule because contemporary life is absolutely saturated with sound. Refrigerators hum constantly throughout the day and night. Heating and cooling systems click on and off with jarring regularity. Smartphones chirp with notifications every few minutes. Televisions produce continuous background noise even when no one is watching them. According to traditional interpretation, all of these devices should ideally be silenced during the 12 Rauhnachte. Electronic devices create particularly problematic noise patterns. Alarm clocks blast us awake at predetermined hours with harsh mechanical sounds. Microwaves beep repeatedly when food finishes heating. Phones ring with incoming calls at random times. Each of these represents a modern equivalent of the dangerous sudden noises our ancestors warned against. Sharp, loud, mechanical sounds that break silence and demand immediate attention. The solution requires conscious, deliberate attention to your acoustic environment. Set phones to silent mode or vibrate instead of ringtones. Disable notification sounds on all devices. Use vibration alerts that you can feel without creating noise others might hear. Choose gentler alarm tones, or better yet, eliminate mechanical alarms entirely by allowing yourself to wake naturally. Close doors slowly and carefully, ensuring they latch quietly without banging. Speak in lowered voices throughout your home. Move through rooms with deliberate care, placing objects down softly rather than dropping them carelessly. Creating this quieter environment produces an interesting effect. When you actively work to reduce ambient noise, you become acutely aware of just how much sound normally fills your living space. The constant background static that usually goes completely unnoticed suddenly becomes obvious and even overwhelming. Reducing that noise creates space for something else to emerge. Real silence. The kind of silence that allows subtle sounds to become perceptible. You notice your house settling. You hear the rhythm of your own breathing. Small creaks and whispers that are always present but normally obscured by louder sounds finally reach your awareness. In that deeper silence, you might notice other things. Sounds that have no obvious source. Footsteps when everyone in your household is sitting still. Whispers when no one is speaking. The Rauhnachte make these subtle noises more perceptible specifically because the normal acoustic interference has been intentionally removed. Whether these unexplained sounds represent genuine spiritual activity or simply heightened awareness of normal house noises doesn't particularly matter for practical purposes. The experience itself carries value regardless of its source. The third rule teaches that the Rauhnachte demand constant mindfulness. Every action you take, including the sounds you create through that action, carries consequences during this time that extend far into your future. Carelessness with noise reveals general carelessness in your approach to life. During a period when spiritual forces move freely with increased access to our dimension, carelessness becomes genuinely dangerous. Moving slowly, speaking quietly, and treating every sound as potentially significant is simply the safer approach. Because during these 12 nights suspended outside normal time, it absolutely is. Rule 4. No listening after dark. Walk into a German stable at midnight during the Rauhnachte, and you'll hear cows discussing your death in perfect human language. The dog at your door isn't a dog. The cat watching you isn't a cat. Welcome to the strangest territory of these 12 nights, where nothing with fur or feathers can be trusted. What seems harmless at first glance reveals itself as deeply uncanny when you understand the forces operating beneath the surface. During these 12 nights, the comfortable assumption that you can trust your own eyes becomes a potentially fatal mistake. At the stroke of midnight on certain Rauhnachte nights, something wonderful and terrifying occurs simultaneously. The animals begin speaking. Not random sounds that superstitious people interpret as words. Not animal noises that coincidentally sound like language. Fluent human language flows from the mouths of cows and horses and sheep and goats. They converse about their owners' futures. They discuss upcoming deaths with calm certainty. They predict marriages that haven't been arranged yet. They reveal fortunes that will be gained or lost. Listening to these conversations would be absolutely fascinating if there weren't one critical prohibition attached. You must not eavesdrop under any circumstances. Anyone who hears the animals speaking and understands their words will suffer terrible misfortune before the year ends. This warning appears consistently across every region of the German cultural sphere. It's not exaggerated for dramatic effect. It's not negotiable based on circumstances. Eavesdropping on animal conversations during the Rauhnachte brings genuine catastrophe. The reasoning behind this absolute ban has everything to do with the nature of prophetic knowledge itself. The stable animals speak during these nights as messengers functioning between the human world and the spirit realm. Their words carry power far beyond simple information transfer. Hearing future events spoken aloud creates a binding connection between you and those events. Your awareness of them generates an energetic thread linking you to outcomes you have no ability to change or prevent. This knowledge becomes a crushing burden that human consciousness isn't equipped to carry. The animals often speak about difficult things that no one wants to know in advance. They discuss illnesses that will strike family members. They describe accidents that will kill neighbors. They reveal financial disasters that will destroy livelihoods. Hearing these prophecies provides absolutely no benefit because you can't prevent them from occurring. You can't change destiny by knowing about it ahead of time. You can only carry the dread knowledge forward, poisoning every moment with awareness of what approaches. Our ancestors understood this fundamental truth. Some secrets destroy the people who possess them. Not everyone can understand animal language during the Rauhnachte anyway. A particular spiritual sensitivity seems to be required, a kind of openness to supernatural communication that most people naturally lack. Those who do possess this gift should stay far away from all stables at midnight on the critical nights. The temptation to listen will be almost overwhelming. Human curiosity about the future pulls at us with incredible force. But satisfying that curiosity during the Rauhnachte costs far more than the knowledge gained is worth. Speaking animals represent only one category of animal danger during these 12 nights. Strange animals that appear unexpectedly during the Rauhnachte are often not animals at all. Witches, meaning practitioners of harmful magic in these Germanic traditions, enjoy transforming into animal shapes during this time to wander freely without drawing suspicion. They pursue their own mysterious purposes while hidden behind fur and feathers and scales. A dog that suddenly appears at your door might be a witch testing your household protections. A cat behaving unusually could be a malevolent entity wearing feline form. A bird singing at the wrong hour reveals itself as something other than an ordinary bird. These aren't theoretical possibilities that exist only in old stories. Germanic traditions document these transformations extensively based on observed patterns of behavior that communities learn to recognize and avoid. Hares receive particular warnings in the animal danger rules. The hare, a creature associated with witchcraft across all European cultures for thousands of years, becomes even more dangerous during the Rauhnachte. According to documented beliefs recorded in multiple regions, the devil himself appears in the form of a hare during these nights. He crosses paths with travelers deliberately to test their spiritual strength, to see if they'll follow him into the woods, to measure their resistance to temptation. A hare crossing your path during the 12 nights should never be pursued under any circumstances. Don't follow it to see where it goes. Don't try to hunt it for food. Don't even watch its direction of travel. Turn away immediately. Change your own direction. The hare test has only one correct response: complete and immediate disregard. Those who fail this test, who give in to curiosity or hunting instinct, invite supernatural attention they'll spend the entire coming year trying to escape. The rule extends to all animal interactions during the Rauhnachte. Don't call animals to you. Don't feed unfamiliar creatures that appear on your property. Don't attempt to lure or attract any animal presence whatsoever. What seems like kindness or simple hospitality can become a dangerous invitation. Putting out food for birds or offering scraps to a stray dog might actually be welcoming entities wearing animal disguises into your immediate vicinity. These disguised visitors aren't always obviously malevolent in their behavior. They may appear completely friendly and harmless. A dog wagging its tail enthusiastically. A cat purring and rubbing against your legs. But accepting them, allowing them close, granting them access to your property or home, gives them power they wouldn't otherwise possess. Once you've invited something across your threshold, once you've welcomed it into physical proximity, it establishes a connection that persists long after the Rauhnachte end. A particular entity appears repeatedly in these traditions. The Druid, a word that doesn't translate directly into English, but refers to a nocturnal being that sits on the chests of sleeping people. It presses down with impossible weight, making breathing extremely difficult and inducing suffocating nightmares. The experience of a Druid visit has been documented for well over 1,000 years. People wake in the night completely unable to move their bodies. They feel crushing weight on their chests that makes each breath a struggle. They see shadowy forms in the darkness that they can't quite focus on. What modern medicine now explains as sleep paralysis, a neurological condition, our ancestors attributed to the Druid. The Druid enters homes specifically in animal form. It might be a cat slipping through a crack in your door that you didn't realize was large enough for passage. It could be a mouse hiding in a dark corner where you can't see it. Sometimes it's a spider descending from the ceiling on an invisible thread. Once the Druid gets inside, it finds sleeping humans and reveals its true nature. The crushing weight, the paralysis that prevents movement or calling for help, the terror of being awake but trapped in your own body. Protection against the Druid comes from the Druidenfuss, which translates as Druid's foot. This is a 5-pointed star symbol drawn with your left foot on the floor directly beside your bed. The symbol has roots in pre-Christian practices that extend back into Germanic paganism. It creates a spiritual barrier the Druid cannot cross. The drawing must be done correctly with all sample points connected by unbroken lines and made with clear protective intention. A Christian cross works as an alternative protection, but is traditionally considered less effective against this specific threat. In the Black Forest, spectral hunting dogs accompany the woad and his ghostly army as they rush through the night. These aren't living dogs. They're the souls of hunting dogs that died but continue serving their master even after death. Their howling announces the approach of the wild hunt from miles away. The sound carries across valleys, echoing between mountains, warning anyone who hears it that the supernatural procession draws near. Anyone who hears this distinctive howling should immediately close and lock all doors and windows, sealing their home against what approaches. For modern families who own pets, these rules create genuine complications. Cats and dogs that normally move freely throughout your house can't simply be locked away in a room for 12 consecutive nights. But they should be watched very closely during this time. Unusual behavior becomes significant. A normally calm cat suddenly becoming agitated without visible cause. A dog barking at empty corners or doorways. These behaviors may indicate supernatural presence that human senses can't detect directly. Animals naturally sense things that remain invisible to us. During the Rauhnachte, when spiritual activity increases dramatically, household pets often become unusually alert and watchful. They stare at empty doorways as if watching something pass through. They growl at nothing humans can see. They refuse to enter certain rooms without any apparent reason. This behavior shouldn't be dismissed as meaningless or corrected as bad manners. The animals are perceiving real threats. Their reactions provide early warnings that humans should pay attention to. The rule also demands that pets receive active protection during the 12 nights. Don't leave dogs outside overnight. Don't allow cats to roam freely beyond your property. They can become targets for spiritual forces seeking physical bodies to inhabit, or worse, vessels for entities seeking temporary form in our dimension. A pet that disappears during the Rauhnachte may eventually return, but it might come back subtly changed. Still recognizable as your animal, but no longer quite the same creature it was before. Simultaneously, your own pets can serve protective functions if you learn to read their signals correctly. An alert dog or watchful cat creates a perimeter of awareness that supplements human vigilance. Animals notice things first. They react to supernatural presence before it becomes obvious to human perception. Learning to interpret what your pet's various behaviors indicate transforms them into early warning systems. When your dog suddenly stops and stares at empty space, that's not random behavior. Something is there that you can't see yet. The fourth rule teaches that during the Rauhnachte, every assumption becomes dangerous. Nothing is necessarily what it appears to be. Every animal you encounter carries the potential for transformation into something else entirely. Every unusual behavior signals something operating beneath the visible surface. The balance you need to strike is wariness without paranoia. Respect without paralyzing fear. This is what allows you to navigate the animal dangers of the 12 nights successfully. And most importantly, when midnight arrives and the stable animals begin their conversations about the future, be absolutely anywhere else. Rule 5. Prepare or perish. Families who entered the Rauhnachte with messy homes didn't make it through the year. Not all of them. The fifth rule isn't about cleanliness. It's about survival. People catastrophically underestimate what preparation actually means when dealing with these 12 nights. Many assume you can simply drift into these 12 nights without establishing proper order beforehand. That assumption isn't just mistaken. It's genuinely dangerous. The Rauhnachte forgive absolutely no negligence. They punish the unprepared with merciless severity. The consequences of entering this time carelessly extend throughout every single month of the coming year. Weeks before December 24th arrives, your entire house must be thoroughly cleaned from top to bottom. This isn't ordinary tidying where you straighten up visible surfaces and call it done. This is deep, systematic purification that reaches into every corner and hidden space where spiritual contamination can accumulate over time. Dust and dirt that have built up during the previous 12 months aren't just physical filth that makes your home look messy. They function as carriers of negative vibrations and emotional residue. During the sensitive Rauhnachte, when the boundary between worlds grows dangerously thin, this accumulated negativity transforms into real problems. Every corner of every room must be addressed with serious attention. Spirits and uncanny entities actively seek out dark, cluttered areas because these spaces offer shelter from light and attention. A neglected corner where cobwebs have accumulated for months can become a potential entry point for supernatural forces. An untidy attic filled with forgotten boxes transforms into a gathering place for wandering souls who find the chaos appealing. What seems like harmless disorder during normal time becomes, during the Rauhnachte, an open invitation to forces that should remain locked outside your living space. Cleaning represents only the first step in proper preparation. Equally important is settling all outstanding debts before the 12 nights begin. Entering the Rauhnachte with unresolved obligations attracts negative energy with disturbing efficiency. Debts create invisible chains that bind you to the past and prevent you from opening fully to the spiritual opportunities this time offers. A conscience burdened by what you owe cannot receive what the Rauhnachte want to give. This principle applies to all forms of debt, not just money owed to banks or individuals. Items borrowed from others and never returned. Favors promised but never fulfilled. Words of apology or reconciliation that need to be spoken but remain unspoken. Each of these represents an energetic debt that must be cleared before the 12 nights arrive. The Rauhnachte demand that you show up clean, completely free of obligations, ready to face what comes without the weight of the past dragging behind you. Traditional Germanic households understood preparation as a collective responsibility involving every family member. Everyone participated in both the physical cleaning and the settling of accounts. If even one person neglected their part of the work, the entire household would suffer the consequences. This reveals something crucial about the nature of these nights. They affect not just individuals operating independently, but entire family units as collective entities. The protection or vulnerability applies to everyone living under the same roof. Unity in preparation creates unity in protection. During the Rauhnachte themselves, the order you've established must be actively maintained. What has been cleaned stays clean. What has been organized remains organized. Allowing disorder to emerge during the 12 nights opens pathways for chaotic energies that will create persistent problems throughout all of the next year. An unmade bed left rumpled all day. An unwashed dish sitting in the sink. A shoe carelessly kicked off in the middle of the floor. Each becomes a crack in your spiritual defenses. This rule operates on a level deeper than immediately visible appearances suggest. External order in your physical environment reflects internal order in your consciousness. A house where everything has its designated place and consistently remains in that place demonstrates a mind that understands structure and respects boundaries. Chaos visible in your environment signals chaos operating in your thoughts and emotions. During the Rauhnachte, when spiritual forces actively test every weakness they can find, mental and emotional chaos becomes a vulnerability that entities will ruthlessly exploit. The preparation also includes acquiring new clothing specifically for wearing during the 12 nights. Old garments carry energetic imprints from everything that happened while you were wearing them. They remember arguments you had. They absorb the atmosphere of difficult situations. They hold traces of illness and sorrow that soaked into the fabric. During the Rauhnachte, when your sensitivity to subtle energies increases dramatically, wearing clothing saturated with negative memories clouds the pure atmosphere you're trying to create and maintain. New clothing represents a fresh start. It signals your readiness for new experiences that aren't contaminated by what already occurred. The rule extends well beyond spaces you use daily. Cellars, attics, storage rooms, any area you rarely visit during normal time requires exactly the same thorough attention as your kitchen and bedroom. These forgotten places often accumulate more than just dust over time. They become repositories for stagnant energy that has nowhere else to go. During the Rauhnachte, when activity in the spirit realm increases dramatically, these neglected spaces can serve as gathering points for entities seeking entry into your home. A dusty attic you ignore throughout the year becomes, during the 12 nights, a potential headquarters for unwanted visitors organizing their approach. Borrowed items create their own specific category of problem. Everything you've borrowed from other people must be returned before the Rauhnachte begin, with no exceptions. Physical objects carry the energy of their owners embedded in their material structure. A borrowed tool, a borrowed book, even borrowed clothing, all maintain energetic connections to the people they truly belong to. These foreign energies present in your home cloud the spiritual clarity you need during the 12 nights. Beyond that practical concern, according to old Germanic traditions, keeping borrowed items during the Rauhnachte marked a person as potentially engaged in witchcraft. The reverse principle also holds true. Nothing should be lent out during the 12 nights once they begin. Objects leaving your home carry your energy with them. They've absorbed the special atmosphere of the Rauhnachte. When they depart to someone else's possession, they take a piece of that accumulated power with them. You lose access to energy that should remain yours. The person borrowing the item may not treat it with appropriate respect, leading to contamination or damage that affects you spiritually, even though the object exists physically elsewhere. For modern households, this rule demands careful planning during the entire Advent season leading up to Christmas. The normal preparations for Christmas celebrations often create significant stress and disorder. But time must be deliberately carved out for the deeper work that really matters. The spiritual cleaning that goes beyond hanging decorations. The settling of accounts that extends past buying gifts. A home can appear outwardly festive with lights and ornaments while remaining inwardly disordered and spiritually unprepared. The Rauhnachte require both external and internal preparation. Apartments and smaller living spaces actually offer certain practical advantages for this rule. Less physical space means proportionally less area requiring deep attention and cleaning. Chaos has fewer places to hide in a small apartment compared to a large house. The work of establishing proper order is correspondingly smaller and faster. The effects of maintaining that order become more immediately tangible and noticeable. In a small space, every object placed in its proper location creates visible harmony. Every item left out of place creates obvious disruption. The fifth rule reveals that the Rauhnachte are not passive events that simply happen to you while you wait for them to end. They require active, conscious participation. Deliberate effort to create the specific conditions under which the spiritual opportunities of this time can actually manifest. Families who take this seriously, who genuinely invest energy in establishing and maintaining proper order, discover that the 12 nights offer experiences completely unavailable to those who approach carelessly. The consequences of neglecting preparation are extensively documented. Families who entered the Rauhnachte with messy homes and unresolved debts faced year-long difficulties that couldn't be dismissed as normal bad luck. Persistent illness affecting multiple family members. Serious financial problems that compounded without logical cause. Relationship conflicts that escalated for no clear reason. The pattern repeated with enough consistency to become encoded as absolute law. Prepare properly or suffer. No comfortable middle ground exists. The Rauhnachte reward thoroughness with protection. They punish negligence without mercy. Rule 6. The protective rituals. Everything changes with the 6th rule. We stop running and start fighting back. Avoidance keeps you alive, but it won't protect your home when January 6th arrives and the most dangerous night of all, 12, finally comes. You need weapons. Our Germanic ancestors figured out exactly which ones work. What not to say, where not to go, which tasks to leave undone. But avoidance alone provides insufficient protection during the Rauhnachte. Active defense becomes necessary. Our Germanic ancestors developed specific practices designed to create barriers between themselves and the forces moving through these 12 nights. These practices work. They've been tested and refined across centuries of use. They remain just as necessary today as they were 1,000 years ago. The single most powerful protective tool available is fumigation. This represents an ancient practice found across many cultures worldwide, but Germanic traditions developed it into precise ritual with exacting standards. Burning specific plants produces smoke that drives away spirits and cleanses spaces of accumulated negative energy. The mechanism is straightforward enough. Spirits find smoke intensely uncomfortable. It irritates them in ways that transcend physical sensation. The smoke forces them to leave fumigated areas. The rising smoke creates a barrier they refuse to cross willingly. Very specific plants are used in Rauhnachte fumigation, chosen for their proven effectiveness across generations. Frankincense, a resin harvested from trees that grow in the Middle East and North Africa, is considered the most powerful cleansing agent. Its sacred scent not only cleanses but also blesses the spaces and people it touches. Juniper, with its sharp bitter aroma, proves particularly effective in farmhouses where protecting livestock matters as much as protecting the human family. Sage brings mental clarity and removes negative energies that cloud perception and judgment. Mugwort opens pathways to enhanced dream interpretation and helps decode the messages that come during the Rauhnachte. Myrrh, another Middle Eastern resin, strengthens spiritual connections. Sandalwood brings calm to agitated minds. Thyme provides robust protection against a wide range of unwanted entities. The fumigation itself must follow a specific systematic pattern. Using a censer, which is a metal container designed to hold burning materials safely, or any fireproof vessel that can serve the same purpose, you move through every single room of your house in a deliberate sequence. Pay special attention to corners where spirits prefer to hide. A second person should ideally follow behind carrying holy water, meaning water that has been blessed according to Christian tradition. They sprinkle all inhabitants, both human and animal, with the consecrated drops while speaking prayers that invoke divine protection. January 6th, the final night of the Rauhnachte and the Feast of Epiphany in Christian tradition, is considered the single most dangerous night of all 12. This night requires the most intensive fumigation of the entire period. Not just your main house, but also any outbuildings, storage areas, and animal stables receive thorough treatment. Livestock are individually sprinkled with holy water. They're fed pieces of bread that have been consecrated for this specific purpose. Cows, sheep, horses, goats, every animal under your care receives its share of this spiritual protection. Beyond fumigation, certain protective symbols provide crucial additional defense. The Druidenfuß, which translates as Druid's foot, is a 5-pointed star drawn with your left foot on the floor directly beside your bed. This protects the sleeper from the drood, that nocturnal entity which sits on chests and induces suffocating nightmares. The drawing must be intentional and precise. 5 points connected by unbroken lines. The symbol creates a spiritual boundary the drood physically cannot cross. Those uncomfortable with pre-Christian symbols can use crosses as an alternative, though the druidenfuss is traditionally considered more effective against this particular threat. Horseshoes nailed above doors and windows strengthen overall protections. Consecrated salt sprinkled across thresholds creates barriers that spirits will not cross. Candles burning in windows bring light into darkness and repel entities that instinctively avoid illumination. All windows and doors should remain firmly closed throughout the nights. Open entrances function as invitations. Closed barriers, reinforced with these traditional protections, keep unwanted visitors outside where they belong. The Rauhnachte offer more than just defensive opportunities. They also provide chances for genuine insight into the coming year. The old oracle practices allow glimpses of future events, helping you prepare for what approaches. The onion oracle is one of the most reliable methods documented. 12 onion shells, one representing each month of the coming year, are each filled with a small amount of salt and left overnight in a dry location. In the morning, you examine the moisture levels in each shell. Wet shells indicate rainy weather for that month. Dry shells predict dry conditions. The method appears deceptively simple, but, according to generations of documented observation, produces surprisingly accurate predictions. Another practice involves lead pouring, or wax pouring, where molten metal or wax is carefully dripped into cold water. The shapes that form as the material solidifies are then interpreted for symbolic meaning about the coming year. A shape resembling a ship might indicate travel opportunities. Something like a ring could suggest an approaching marriage. A cross shape might warn of illness or spiritual challenges. This oracle requires developed intuition and practice to interpret accurately, but the insights it provides can be remarkably specific and useful. The ritual of the 13 wishes combines hope with sacred sacrifice. Before the Rauhnachte begin, you write 13 separate wishes on individual small pieces of paper. Each of the 12 nights, you burn one wish, releasing it to the universe. The 13th wish remains unburned. You keep this final wish throughout the entire coming year as a gift to the universe, demonstrating that you don't only take but are also willing to give. This balance, this reciprocity, matters deeply in effective spiritual practice. The dreams that occur during the first 3 Rauhnachte carry particular prophetic significance and should be carefully recorded immediately upon waking. Dreams happening before midnight relate to the first half of the corresponding month. Dreams occurring after midnight reveal the second half. The first night shows January with its emphasis on new beginnings. The second night reveals February with its focus on relationships and social connections. The third night unveils March with its themes of growth and expansion. These dream messages provide guidance about challenges and opportunities in the approaching months. Each of the 12 individual nights corresponds to one specific month of the coming year in sequential order. The weather during each night offers direct clues about the corresponding month's conditions. Special events or unusual occurrences during a particular night suggest what that month will bring. The first night represents January. The second night corresponds to February. The pattern continues through all 12 months, creating a prophetic map of the year ahead. For modern people unfamiliar with these practices, much of this seems unusual or difficult to implement. But adaptation is more straightforward than it initially appears. Incense sticks can replace traditional herbs if the specific plants prove difficult to obtain. Electric candles work perfectly well when real flames are prohibited in apartment buildings. What truly matters isn't the exact physical form, but the intention behind the practice. The conscious decision to protect yourself and to open your awareness to the special energies operating during this time. Daily fumigation can evolve into a valuable meditative practice. Not just protection against supernatural threats, but also a moment of deliberate pause. A conscious transition from ordinary awareness into the special consciousness appropriate for the Rauhnachte. The various scents create specific atmospheres that facilitate this mental shift. Frankincense smells sacred and elevating. Juniper smells sharp and actively protective. Sage smells clean and clarifying. Each scent helps signal to your mind that this time exists outside normal parameters. The oracle practices don't require belief in magic or supernatural prediction to provide value. They function effectively as tools for reflection and accessing intuition. When you interpret shapes in cooled wax or carefully track your dreams, you engage parts of your mind that rational thinking normally suppresses. Whether the predictions originate from spiritual forces or from your own unconscious wisdom matters less than the fact that they consistently provide useful guidance for navigating the year ahead. The 13 Wishes ritual demonstrates the fundamental principle of reciprocity in spiritual practice. You cannot only take from the universe without giving anything back. The unburned wish, the one you consciously sacrifice, shows your willingness to release control. To trust that what truly matters will arrive whether you desperately grasp for it or not. This attitude of openness and trust makes you far more receptive to the genuine gifts the Rauhnachte actually offer. Protection and insight together form the complete practice. Defense keeps you safe from genuine threats that operate during this time. Oracle work opens you to genuine opportunities that would otherwise pass unnoticed. Both aspects are absolutely necessary. All defense with no openness leaves you locked in fear, missing what the 12 nights generously provide. All openness with no defense leaves you dangerously vulnerable to forces that should remain outside. Balance represents the key. Protection combined with awareness. Defense paired with receptivity. The 6th rule teaches that the Rauhnachte demand active participation rather than passive waiting. You cannot simply wait for these nights to pass and hope for the best. You must consciously engage with them, deliberately, using the tools our ancestors developed through centuries of experience and prove genuinely effective. Families who take these practices seriously discover that the 12 nights transform from a vague period of unease into a time of genuine power. The protection these rituals provide is absolutely real. The insights they generate prove valuable. The experience of consciously navigating this liminal time enriches the entire year that follows. Rule 7. Know your region's rules. The Perchten walk through Bavarian villages wearing bells and judging households. Hundreds of miles north in the Black Forest, Frau Holle watches over her people while the woad hunts for cracks in their defenses. Same 12 nights. Completely different nightmares. The 7th rule reveals something crucial. Geography determines which forces want you dead. What qualifies as unshakable law in Bavaria, the southeastern state of Germany known for Alpine mountains and preserved traditional culture, may be completely unknown in the Black Forest. What Austrian farmers have practiced for generations might seem foreign to families living in northern Germany along the Baltic Sea coast. These differences aren't random variations or corrupted versions of an original pure tradition. They reflect the distinct spiritual landscapes of different geographic areas. In the Alpine region, which stretches from Bavaria through Austria into South Tyrol in northern Italy, creating a massive mountain range that forms the spine of Central Europe, the Perchten rule over the Rauhnachte. These aren't simple folklore characters invented to entertain children or tourists. They're powerful supernatural entities that have been documented in written records in this region since the 6th century, over 1,400 years ago. The Perchten wander through mountain villages during the 12 nights, systematically checking whether families have followed the old rules. They inspect homes with ruthless attention to detail. They observe behavior. They judge. The Perchten divide into 2 distinct categories with very different functions. Good Perchten reward hard-working households with blessings for the coming year. They recognize orderly homes where preparation was taken seriously. They notice conscientious attention to tradition. Families who pass this inspection receive tangible favor that manifests as prosperity, health, and general good fortune throughout the next 12 months. Evil Perchten, however, punish every single violation of the rules with merciless severity. An untidy kitchen. Dirty laundry left visible during the forbidden period. Neglected housework. These failures bring substantial misfortune that persists throughout the entire year. Particularly feared is the Rauhnachte, a specific type of Percht who targets lazy servants and negligent housekeepers with special enthusiasm. She appears without warning during the Rauhnachte. She assesses the state of homes with ruthless precision. She delivers consequences that aren't metaphorical or symbolic. Alpine families who encountered the Rauhnachte reported genuine misfortune in the months following her visit. Serious illness. Devastating financial loss. A pattern consistent enough across generations to keep entire communities vigilant about cleanliness and proper order. In Alpine culture, the Perchten aren't feared in the sense of wanting them to disappear or avoid the region. They're respected as enforcers of proper behavior who serve a necessary function. Following the rules carefully means the Perchten become powerful allies rather than dangerous threats. Their presence during the Rauhnachte serves the community. They maintain standards. They ensure traditions continue unbroken. The bells they wear on their costumes during traditional Perchten runs don't drive the Perchten themselves away. The bells drive away the winter spirits and lesser entities that might attempt to follow in the Perchteen's wake. The situation differs substantially in the Black Forest. This massive forested mountain range in southwestern Germany, covered in dense pine forests that create deep shadows even at midday, has its own guardian watching over the Rauhnachte. Frau Holle, whose name means Mother Holle or Frau Holle in some dialects, serves as both judge and protector. This maternal figure simultaneously evaluates character and defends those under her care. She rewards honest work and pure hearts. Under her active protection, the worthy receive substantial blessings. But Frau Holle must also defend her people from other forces that haunt the Black Forest during these vulnerable nights. The Woad, a local manifestation of the old Germanic war god, leads his spectral army through the dark woods. He actively searches for cracks in houses, weaknesses in defenses, any opening through which he can penetrate into human dwellings. He's accompanied by dwarves and gnomes from underground realms, but also by wild witches who roam the region wearing disguises. They might appear as travelers seeking shelter from the winter cold. They might take animal forms that seem harmless. The people of the Black Forest learned through bitter experience to treat every stranger during the Rauhnachte with extreme caution. Bavaria maintains a special variant of the laundry prohibition that differs from other regions in a very specific way. On December 28th specifically, absolutely no sheets may be hung up anywhere for any reason. This particular night is when the souls of deceased children wander through the world, and they can become tragically entangled in white cloth hanging in the darkness. This regional particularity shows how precisely Bavarian traditions track different spiritual activities occurring on different individual nights. It's not a general prohibition applied uniformly. It's a targeted response to a documented pattern observed over generations. Austrian households know a unique tradition called Schlapfen-werfen, which translates roughly as slipper casting. This is practiced on Thomas Night, running from December 20th to 21st. Unmarried girls throw a slipper backwards over their shoulder without looking. If the toe of the slipper points toward the door when it lands, the interpretation is clear. It goes out, meaning departure. A wedding approaches in the coming year. The girl will leave her family home. This oracle practice is specific to Austria and relatively unknown in other German regions, showing how traditions develop locally to address particular concerns. The different methods of counting the Rauhnachte themselves are equally interesting. Most regions count 12 nights starting from December 25th and ending on January 6th. But alternative traditions exist. Some areas begin the Rauhnachte 12 days before Christmas rather than after. Others start only after New Year's Day. These variations arose from various calendar reforms implemented over centuries and from independent local traditions that developed in isolated communities. All these counting methods are valid within their specific regional contexts. In Upper Austria, the region in northern Austria along the Danube River, a distinction is made between fat nights and lean nights during the Rauhnachte. Fat nights bring abundance and prosperity when their signs are interpreted correctly. Lean nights can announce scarcity and deprivation in the corresponding months. This classification helps practitioners interpret oracles with more precision. A prophetic dream during a fat night carries fundamentally different meaning than the identical dream occurring during a lean night. This regional nuance adds interpretive layers completely unavailable in areas that don't make this distinction. Northern German regions, particularly coastal areas like Mecklenburg along the Baltic Sea, know this time period under different names and have developed distinct traditions reflecting their geography. Less emphasis appears on Alpine Perchten, who don't operate in flat coastal regions. More focus centers on protection from winter storms that can sweep violently across the land from the sea. The spiritual threats match the physical geography. Inland regions fear forest spirits. Coastal regions fear storm entities. Mountain regions fear avalanche spirits and the dangers of winter death in high altitudes. The fumigation herbs used also vary significantly by region based on what grows locally. In the Alpine area, spikenard root and spruce resin are strongly preferred. These plants thrive in mountain environments and have proven effective against the specific spiritual threats operating in that landscape. Black forest traditions favor yew and blackthorn wood instead. These are plants native to that particular forest environment. The choice is never arbitrary or based on simple availability. Each region uses plants that grow there naturally and that have been tested over generations against the entities inhabiting that specific spiritual landscape. The supernatural threats themselves take different forms depending on geographic location. The Alpine druid exhibits different behavior patterns than the house spirits of the Black Forest. The wild hunt rides differently through various terrains. In mountainous areas, it follows ridgelines and mountain peaks. In forested regions, it rushes between trees at ground level. On flat coastal land, it follows wind currents across open terrain. The same fundamental force manifests in forms appropriate to local environment. For people living in a different region than where their ancestors came from, a practical question arises. Which traditions should be followed? The traditional answer is clear and unambiguous. Those who currently live in the Black Forest should adopt Black Forest traditions, regardless of where their family originally came from. The spirits and supernatural forces are bound to specific geographic places. Only local traditions offer effective protection against the actual entities operating in your current location. This creates interesting situations for immigrants or people who moved between regions during their lives. A family originally from Bavaria now living in coastal northern Germany must learn and follow northern traditions. The Perchten don't follow families when they move to different regions. Different forces operate in different locations. Continuing to practice Bavarian traditions in a northern setting provides protection against threats that aren't present while leaving actual local threats completely unaddressed. The regional variations aren't simply cultural curiosities interesting only to folklorists and anthropologists. They represent accumulated wisdom about how the spiritual realm actually manifests in different places. Each region faced its own unique challenges during the Rauhnachte. Each developed specific responses precisely tailored to those particular challenges. This diversity represents a genuine treasure of Germanic culture. It shows the richness and sophistication of traditional knowledge developed over centuries. What appears as contradiction when viewed superficially, different rules for different places, actually reveals deeper truth about the nature of spiritual geography. There is no single correct universal way to observe the Rauhnachte because the Rauhnachte themselves manifest differently depending on physical location. The underlying principles remain absolutely constant. The boundary between worlds thins. Spiritual forces gain increased access. Protection and awareness become necessary for survival. But the specific forms that danger takes and the specific methods that provide effective defense vary based on where you actually are. The seventh rule teaches absolute respect for local tradition. Not all wisdom operates universally. Some knowledge is inherently place-specific. Understanding and practicing the traditions of your actual current region, not the region your ancestors came from generations ago, ensures that you address the actual spiritual forces operating in your immediate environment. This isn't about abandoning or disrespecting your heritage. It's about recognizing that spiritual geography matters just as much as physical geography. For those living outside the Germanic cultural sphere entirely, in places where these specific traditions never existed historically, the question becomes considerably more complex. Do the Rauhnachte operate globally or only in regions where they're acknowledged? The traditional answer suggests that the underlying forces are universal, but manifest according to local belief structures and expectations. Other cultures develop their own dangerous periods, their own times when boundaries thin between worlds. The fundamental principles transfer across cultures even when the specific forms and entities don't. The diversity of regional traditions within the Germanic sphere itself demonstrates that these practices evolved through careful observation and documented experience. They weren't handed down complete and unchanging from ancient times. They developed as people noticed patterns, tested various responses, and passed down what actually worked. This ongoing adaptation continues today. Modern practitioners modify traditions to fit contemporary circumstances while maintaining the core principles that matter. The external forms change with time. The underlying reality they address remains constant across centuries. Epilogue. What remains? The 7 rules of the Rauhnachte are far more than historical curiosities preserved in dusty archives. They're practical instructions from people who understood that certain times demand particular awareness and specific actions. The mystical aspects may seem subtle now, hidden beneath the constant noise of modern existence. But they haven't disappeared. They've simply become less visible to eyes trained to see only what science can measure. For those interested in experiencing these traditions consciously, the rules offer a practical framework. Not washing laundry between Christmas and Epiphany creates space for genuine rest rather than adding burdensome obligation. Fumigation with sage or juniper brings calming atmosphere along with whatever spiritual protection it provides. Recording dreams and attempting oracle interpretations engages intuition in ways ordinary life rarely permits. Whether you approach these traditions as literal spiritual practice or as psychological exercises for self-reflection matters less than the act of conscious participation itself. The Rauhnachte offer permission to pause, to reflect deeply, to mark the transition from old year to new with something more meaningful than parties and quickly broken resolutions. The 7 rules create structure for that pause. They transform 12 nights from empty time between holidays into genuinely meaningful experience. The traditions vary by region, but all share common recognition that this time exists outside normal parameters, that boundaries thin between visible and invisible worlds, that what normally remains hidden becomes briefly accessible to those who know how to look. Our Germanic ancestors developed protections and practices that serve them remarkably well. Those same tools remain available today, adapted to contemporary circumstances but fundamentally unchanged in their core purpose. If this exploration of Germanic winter traditions interested you, leave a like on this video. Subscribe to the Pandora's Project to discover more dark truths preserved in cultural practices from every corner of the world. Tell us in the comments whether your own family or region maintains similar traditions during the winter season. We're constantly searching for more forbidden knowledge sealed away in the archives of human experience. The 12 nights between Christmas and Epiphany hold secrets that modern life has obscured but never truly erased. May you navigate them with awareness and appropriate respect. See you in the next tomb.